for a session produced by our underwriter, Gilead. Please welcome Shant Salakian, Executive Director and Head of Global Oncology Therapeutic Area Communications at Gilead.
Cancer steals the moments that make us. Cancer steals possibility. But at Gilead Oncology, we are taking it back because we refuse to accept that cancer can still take the ones we love. Today's panel discussion will focus and highlight that though cancer takes possibility, we as an oncology community are taking it back. I'd like to thank The Atlantic for hosting this panel, and on behalf of Gilead Oncology, welcome you to this session. Our panel today will be moderated by my colleague, Kathy, Senior Director of Advocacy at Gilead Oncology, and will feature, and you will hear the inspiring stories of Jamie, an entrepreneur, an advocate, and lung cancer warrior. Emma, a wife, a nurse, and a metastatic breast cancer survivor. And you'll also hear from Darcy, the head of the advocacy organization, Latinas Contra Cancer. I am certain that their stories will inspire you. Let's give them a warm welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Shant, thank you for the warm welcome. We're delighted to have those of you here in the room in New York City with us and all of you listening in virtually. We have such an amazing panel for you this afternoon. Please continue to enjoy your lunch for those of you that are here in New York. But our focus today, as Shant kindly said, is taking back possibility in the face of cancer. And I have a powerhouse panel of women for you to hear from. So we're gonna dive right in and get into introductions. Emma, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Emma. I was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer at the age of 28. I'm a registered nurse. I am a wife, a daughter, a sister, you name it, and I am trying to advocate for everyone with breast cancer. I come from a long family history of breast cancer, and I think it's so important that I'm here to be able to speak on breast cancer and advocating for everyone.
Thank you for being here, Emma.
Thank
you. Jamie.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jamie. I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer in December of 2018 at the age of 32. And I am now a fierce lung cancer warrior. I'm an advocate and entrepreneur, and I am really, really happy and excited to be here today to share my story with you. And I hope that it motivates and inspires you guys to take action in your lives as well.
We appreciate your being here, Jamie. Darcy.
I am so honored to be here. My name is Darcy Green, Executive Director at Latinas Contra Cancer. We're a health justice organization. It's been around 20 years, serving the Latino community on issues of cancer. It is a profound honor to be here on the panel today.
It is our honor, so thank you, Darcy. We have so many great questions for this panel, but before we dive in, I'm gonna do a little bit of audience interaction. It's very short, I promise it will be painless, but I'd love to ask those of you here in the room and those listening online to please raise your hands if you've ever felt unseen or unheard as you've had to deal with a health issue. I saw one person's hand go right up immediately. Wow, there's a lot of hands up. Please keep them raised. Have you also had to champion your own healthcare? Have you had to advocate for yourself, fight for yourself? I'm not just seeing hands raised, I'm seeing people waving.
Yeah.
So thank you. And for those of you participating virtually, we honor you and we recognize that you might be feeling that same way. Emma, when you look out across that room and you saw all those hands raised, including some of the waving, what does that make you think about from your own experience?
I think it's like hard to see that so many people, it's great to know that I wasn't alone on feeling that way. My journey with breast cancer, I had symptoms for months. I had expressed my symptoms to my primary and all my doctors, multiple doctors. They told me that I just had PMS and that what I was experiencing was normal. So I went months with going back and forth and telling them both. Finally, I felt a lump in my breast doing a self-exam, and from there, my diagnosis kind of snowballed. Right away, I got seen, they did a biopsy, and during that time, it was really hard because I had expressed my concerns to my doctor, and I felt like no one was really taking me seriously because I was so young. I do have a long family history of it, so that's kind of a flag, but once that lump came, then all the biopsies, and that was really hard because I had gotten my diagnosis, and actually no one called me. Once the pathology report came out, it was a Friday at 5 p.m. My pathology report came back and I read it, and I knew it said invasive ductal carcinoma. So I knew that I had cancer, and no one called me until that Monday. So I went all weekend knowing I had cancer. And
that is so tough.
Yeah, it was very tough.
Jamie, I've got to imagine that this is, I apologize. Jamie, I've got to imagine that this is resonating with you when you think and reflect on your own experience, your own diagnosis, your own treatment journey, and where you are today.
Absolutely. I will start by saying that I had no risk factors for lung cancer. I had no asthma, no allergies, had never spent a night in the hospital. In April of 2018, I developed this wheeze or shortness of breath that only would show up around bedtime, and then it started to get more prevalent. So it started showing up at work and on the subway and at home, and I couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from and why. And I went to my doctor to get checked out, and the doctor referred me to a pathologist or a pulmonologist who really just, I don't know if he was having a bad day, I don't know if he just didn't see me, but honestly, he really did not help me at all. The first time I saw him, I told him what was going on with me. He gave me a breathing test. It didn't come back conclusive for asthma or allergies, but he sent me with an inhaler home and said, use this for 2 weeks and then come back and see me. And I used the inhaler thinking that maybe that was gonna help, and of course it didn't. And I came back in 2 weeks and I said to him, that didn't help me at all. And he wrote me a script for a cough suppressant for 30 days and then sent me on my way again. And it was like at that point that I realized that I wasn't really going to get any help from him. And at that point, those symptoms had subsided. And I ended up not seeing another physician until December of that year. In between there, I got really active into kickboxing and started to really love it. And I hit 30 years old, my metabolism slowed down, I was in a comfortable relationship, I started gaining some weight. So I started to think that I needed to get in shape a little bit more. And I started to develop a back pain and a shortness of breath, which I attributed to the kickboxing, and I didn't realize that it was, a continuation of the cough and the wheeze that I had originally. So I was in the gym with my husband, and we were running on the treadmill. I got to a quarter mile, and I just realized I wasn't breathing. And it wasn't like, oh, your endorphins are gonna kick in and you'll feel better. It was like, no, you're not bringing in any oxygen. So, I ended up going and getting a second opinion, and immediately they kind of did what they were supposed to do. But I remember just walking out of the doctor's office the first time feeling like, well, that was a waste of a copay. I didn't get anything from him.
I'm sorry that was your experience, Jamie. And I see Darcy shaking her head. And Darcy, in the work that you do at Latinas Contra Cancer, I know that you hear stories like Jamie's and Emma's all the time. You recently participated in the Color of Cancer event where healthcare disparities were highlighted and amplified. How do stories that you hear every day in your work and stories like Emma and Jamie's inspire you to do what you do?
Yeah, I mean, these are Emma and Jamie's stories, but they are also the stories of so many other patients in this country and across the world. And what we know at Latinas Contra Cancer and what we've seen is that healthcare is frustrating and it's complicated in ways that are unfair, in ways that are very unnecessary. And nobody should have to battle that uphill battle alone, let alone have to battle the battle in addition to cancer, navigating all these very complicated systems. It's just really not right. And so when we were participating in the Color of Cancer event, I talked a lot about cancer and the connection between cancer and the issues of social justice, and that the health disparities that disproportionately some people face within their cancer journey in the healthcare system are not natural occurrences, right? These health disparities are not natural occurrences. They're there because of policies that cement that in, or public policies that don't protect vulnerable patients, and are very preventable and also predictable. And as an organization, the reason that we consider ourselves a health justice organization is because of these stories. Because cancer is hard enough, and you shouldn't also have to fight for care.
Cancer is hard enough, absolutely. And you know, you and I, in preparing for today, Darcy, we're talking about the experience of cancer, not just at the time of diagnosis and throughout treatment, but also post-treatment and the life beyond cancer. And we talked about how sometimes the impact after treatment or after the scans are completed can be just as difficult, if not more so, than when you're going through your experience. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So the diagnosis itself can sometimes push families and households and individual patients into a level of social and economic distress that they were not already experiencing before the diagnosis. So for the families and the patients that we serve, many of whom are low income, who are underinsured or not insured, and we're already struggling, right, to make ends meet, as many people are in this country, and then a diagnosis on top of that then makes it almost impossible, right, to keep yourself housed, to keep yourself fed, to pay your bills, let alone work or do the other things you might need to do in order to continue providing for yourself and your family. And so even at the point of survivorship, there's still all of these other social and economic pressures that do not get lifted for the folks that we serve. And there are not enough safety nets attached to the cancer journey in order to prevent and make sure we're holding people through that diagnosis so that when they are in survivorship, they can put it behind them and move on and not still be struggling with the economic and social disruptions that they experienced. Many of the folks that we serve are now in debt, they owe on utility bills, they are have had to move or are now living with family or other people, and a change in their housing, and also have found change in their income. And that makes it very difficult, right, to experience what they deserve, right, which is a life after.
Absolutely. And that's exactly where I want to go with Emma and with Jamie, because when they both, although your experiences are markedly different, there are some similarities in that when Jamie and Emma were first diagnosed, they had an immediate impact when cancer collided and interrupted and disrupted their lives. These are two young women. They were thinking about their future and what that future was going to look like. Are you both comfortable sharing a little bit about the decisions that you had to make immediately after diagnosis, that confluence of decisions, those issues that came up for you immediately? Jamie, if you'd like to start.
Yeah. When I first got my diagnosis, it threw me for a 180 for sure. I was not expecting to come out of there with a stage 4 diagnosis, no less. But really what I did was, as soon as I was sitting in the office with the oncologist, somehow, and I don't know how I did this, because I really always say that I experienced that meeting with my oncologist the first time as like an outer body experience. I don't remember, when people ask me what I was thinking, what I was feeling, I'm like, I really can't tell you, because I just was still not fully processing that at 32 years old, never having smoked and no history of cancer in my family, I'm sitting here with lung cancer. It didn't make sense to me. It just went against everything I understood at the time. But immediately, for some reason, my brain went into motherhood and what I was gonna do about that, because I had just gotten married, like literally 2 weeks before this, you know, and to be sitting in the office with an oncologist 2 weeks after saying I do, it was not, collide is a good word for it. It's a very good word for it. It was definitely a collision. And immediately I thought to myself, like, what am I supposed to do about being a mother? You know, and I asked that question to the oncologist. I said, you know, what does this mean for my motherhood journey? And I'll never forget, he was too casual. He was way too casual in my conversation with him. Like, we're talking about steak dinners, you know, and in a cancer meeting. And in any case, I remember he said, you know, well, you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life, and, you know, you can't get pregnant on that medication. So you may want to look at, you know, freezing your eggs or doing something like that. And I immediately was like, all right, well, whatever it is that we need to do needs to halt until I do that, because I realized that that was how important that was to me. And so I got, like I said, I got diagnosed in December of 2018. I'm on a medication, I'm on a targeted therapy to treat my cancer, which has me right now in a medically induced remission. So I'm really grateful for that. We'll stop for a clap. But I didn't do anything about it from December when I was diagnosed until the end of January, because I said I'm going through the IVF process to freeze my eggs and make sure whatever semblance of possibility I have left to be a mother, I preserve it. And so I have that, and I did that, and I don't know how or why I thought of it. I just immediately, it's like my brain went into like survival mode and just came up with that question. And that's just one of the many ways and one of the many things that I've had to think about and pivot around in terms of this diagnosis. But it's definitely the biggest one that I had. Like, the biggest pivot for me was figuring out the motherhood thing.
And you've been very transparent and visible on social media about that journey.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to be. I feel like in this day and age, lung cancer is such a stigmatized disease because of the you know, attachment to smoking. You know, people just assume you did it to yourself. You know, but I'm sitting here at age 36 now, never having smoked with stage 4 lung cancer, and I'm still not a candidate to get screened for lung cancer. So clearly there's something wrong with the system. But you have to be transparent in your journey. You have to tell people the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can't just tell people the good because you're painting a wrong picture. And I feel like for so many years, that's kind of what we've all gotten as people on this planet, that, you know, if you smoke, you get lung cancer. If you smoke, you get lung cancer. That's only part of the picture. Smoking is not the only risk factor to get lung cancer. And so I feel like you have to do a full service to people when you have a diagnosis like this and share your journey, because there's a lot of people who can't, who don't feel compelled to share their journey, who don't feel like they can speak for themselves or speak up for themselves. And if you have the wherewithal and you have the ability to do so, I feel like you really should try to, because there are those that can't do it, haven't been able to do it, or don't know how. And maybe you doing so can help them do it too.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you. Emma.
Thank you.
I completely agree with everything that Jamie just said. As a registered nurse, I do have that medical background, so for me, I am surrounded by people in my field that know things. So, I mean, I went into there and the first thing I did was freeze my eggs before I started treatment. It does make it hard because I was 28 and I also just got married. So the thought of having kids is a beautiful thing that everyone should experience, but I think with cancer, it kind of takes a little bit more hesitant on starting that next step of your life, right? Mm-hmm. So I am honored that I was able to freeze my eggs, but I'm also terrified at the possibility of what could happen. So I think for advocating for myself, I'm not just doing it for me, I'm doing it for people who don't even know that they could maybe even get cancer, or the people who have passed that felt that they didn't know what to do and they passed of cancer or anything like that. So for me, it's it's changed a lot in my life, and it's hard, but I'm also grateful for that, because I'm just think that I take every day with stride, and there's just so much in life to be grateful for. And like freezing my eggs, I might be able to have kids one day, so that's great, but I'm also just, it's a lot. It's a lot to go through when you get your diagnosis. You just kind of get everything thrown at you at once, and having to make all these very fast-paced choices on your health and your future health is hard.
Yeah, as young as you were, as just recently, both of you newlyweds, I can't imagine having to face all of those decisions so abruptly, so quickly, and I'm happy for both of you as to where you are right now.
Thank you.
So you've heard us talking a lot about challenges, but this trio of women, you can tell they are using their voices, they are advocating for themselves, they're championing their own health. And so I want to talk a little bit about, yes, cancer steals possibility, but these three women are examples of how we are taking possibility back. And I'd love to just dig in a little bit with all three of you. Can you share, for those folks who might be looking to learn more, living with cancer, looking to learn more, looking to become advocates for themselves? Jamie, you said, if I can share my voice and help encourage someone else to speak up, that's part of it for you. But what tips, suggestions do you have for others who are looking to inform themselves and speak up for themselves and advocate for themselves so that they too can take possibility back? Darcy, I'm going to start with you.
When I thought about the title of this panel, Taking Back Possibility, I was thinking about, what does that mean to me as an individual advocate? What does that mean to our organization, Latinas Contra Cancer? And I thought of three things. If we could take anything away, at least from what we're doing at LCC. And the first one is cancer as a matter of social justice, right? So if we start from the very basic level of everybody deserves quality care, and what do we have to do in order to make sure that everybody, regardless of their ethnicity, race, language, zip code, employment, stages in their lives, deserves quality care, we can start to have better conversations about how we get them there. So cancer as a matter of social justice. The second is about equity. We can have all of the advancements. We can invest in technology. We can invest in lots of new ways to be better around the issue of cancer. But if we're not doing it through the lens of equity right from the front, there will always be some populations of patients, and disproportionately low-income patients and patients of color, rural patients, who will be left behind before they're brought up. So equity has to be at the forefront of all of the advancements we make in the area of cancer. And the third thing, so social justice, cancer is a social justice issue, cancer as an issue of equity, and starting from a foundation of equity. And then the third thing that we're doing, and we do those things, right? We're a social justice organization, we work in the area of equity. The third thing is building powerful patient populations. Patients have to not only feel powerful, but be powerful. Leveling out the power dynamic that exists between patients and healthcare systems. We heard earlier about all of the different gaps, and if it were not for their ferocious advocacy on behalf of themselves, it might be a different story. And so how do we enable, and I hesitate to use the word empower, because I believe that everyone that we serve is very powerful already, right? So it just, hospitals and healthcare are just complicated, right? So how do we get people the language of healthcare? So at Latinas Contra Cancer, we think a lot about how we build the power of patients, how we organize patients, how we educate patients, not just about cancer, but about their rights as patients, what's involved in their insurance, what demands or asks can they be making for themselves to their healthcare provider. And if we can start to make sure that patient populations, especially those that are most vulnerable to the health disparities that exist within cancer, are powerful and know how to use that power to effectively advocate for themselves and their loved ones, we can get closer to making sure that we are taking back the possibility that cancer can steal.
When I listen to you, Darcy, what's the response to people that avail themselves of Latinas Contra Cancer's resources, information, education? Tell us about some of the people that you work with, and after they've met you and after they've engaged with the organization, what is their response?
Well, first, let me tell you, it's an honor for me. I am like the least important person at LCC. So there's there's an amazing team of people at our organization who come from the community that we serve, who have similar life experiences to the people that we serve, and who are out there every single day working at that intersection of health justice and cancer. And then there's the folks who we serve, who are good at advocating for themselves, have come here from another country, have advocated for their children in their school systems, have advocated at social services, have advocated in other places. Again, it's just that healthcare is very complicated, right? And so the folks that we serve are brilliant and good at advocating for themselves, and they care about their families, and they want the best for themselves and for their loved ones. And this diagnosis comes right as they're already holding everything together, and it just is like the straw, right? The straw that breaks the camel's back, or so they say. And what I love about the population that we serve, and I say this with like a bittersweet, as I think about what I'm going to say right now, it's bittersweet because the population of folks that we serve who have been diagnosed with cancer and are working to not only survive but thrive into survivorship are resilient. But they shouldn't have to be so resilient. Like, patients should not have to be so resilient. And yet, they are. So I get a lot of hope, right? I get a lot of inspiration from the clients that we serve, and just seeing how many obstacles they overcome to achieve that justice for themselves and for their families. And so in the midst of all of the social injustice that exists in the area of cancer, in the midst of really desperate situations that we experience with our clients every single day, even in the midst of really, really hard, tough, sometimes even traumatic conversations that we have, the least I can do is stay hopeful, because as a discipline, right, and because they're doing so much to move themselves forward. And we wholeheartedly believe that we all created these systems and we can create improved ones too, right? And so we're very hopeful as an organization because of the people that we serve.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Darcy. Emma, what advice, suggestions, tips would you have for someone who is advocating for themselves or a loved one who's going through cancer?
I always say this, that you know your body better than anyone else, and whatever you are feeling is real, and it's just so important to listen to your body because it tells you things in many ways that you don't even know how it all works together. And even though you might seem like you're annoying your doctor, do it. It's fine. I mean, they hear it from a ton of people. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, it's really hard to feel like you're that annoying person, right? No one wants to be that. But when it comes to your health, you will never regret investing in it. And it's just so important to just keep doing it, because you need to have that paper trail almost of like having that documentation in there of everything that you are going through.
Thank you. Jamie, anything to add?
Yeah, lots to add. So advocacy means a couple of different things, and it can mean different things to different people. You know, like what I may consider advocacy may either not be enough for somebody or may be too much for somebody else. So you really have to, and there's no, like somebody earlier today said, there wasn't one size fits all, you know, in terms of certain things. So there isn't a one size fits all advocacy approach. You have to do what you're comfortable with and what you know that you can do and what's within your wheelhouse. So don't feel like you have to be the biggest, brightest star in whatever community you're in, or you have to do, you know, X, Y, and Z. You just need to advocate in a way that resonates with you and in a way that you can help affect other people. So if that means just a small thing every now and then that's a small thing every now and then. If that means a daily something, it's a daily something. And nobody is going to look at you one way or another for the way that you advocate. But I think that the point of the story is that you need to do something, you know, because the silence is what kills you. The silence is what doesn't move the needle forward. Even if you're making just a little teeny peep, even in the quietest of rooms, you can hear a teeny peep. So you have to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're comfortable with. You have to make sure that you're just doing something. And at the end of the day, you know, if you feel like you've helped at least one person, job accomplished, you know, because the each one teach one is a snowball effect. And if each of us do something for somebody else, think about the impact that that can make. Certain things, small, even small conversations like this one, if we impacted any of you guys today, then we did our job. You know, if you walk away with any nuggets of information from Darcy, Emma, and myself, then we did a good job. And I feel like I can sleep at night knowing that I helped doing that. You know, and it took me a while to get to this point. I didn't just wake up in the morning and say, yeah, I'm going to do it. It was never, I didn't just wake up and think this way. You know, you have to go through your process. You know, when you get a diagnosis like this, it's not like you just, boom, I'm an advocate. You know, you have to grieve. You have to come to terms with the things that you want to do. You have to really think about what this means and go through those emotions. It's not healthy to bottle them up and pretend like they don't exist. Feel them, let them run through you, go through those motions, but don't stay there. You know, once you get past those things, adjust yourself and start advocating so that other people don't have to feel the same way you felt, or that maybe other, you know, people who can't advocate can find some, you know, inspiration from you and what you're doing. You know, everything is a little teeny bit makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that are interested, Jamie does advocate on social media. You can find her on social media and get these nuggets of wisdom that she's sharing every single day. Thank you.
Not every day. That's not within my wheelhouse, but a lot of times.
Emma, when I think you shared you work in the healthcare profession, and you know that's part of your experience living with breast cancer. You see it through multiple lenses. When you think about taking possibility back through that healthcare lens, what does that mean for you?
I think that for me, I tend to read a lot of studies, which maybe if you were in the medical field, probably wouldn't know what any of the gibberish means, but for me, I just think that all of this is just giving me a really great opportunity to take it all in. It's like, okay, I know what's going on in my body. I don't like it. I'm gonna change it. And I think that for me, I have been really pushing like the whole like watching what you eat, being active, being an advocate, telling your doctor what's going on, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know. I love advocating for patients. I just think it's so important that to try not to make them feel like what they are experiencing is not actually happening, because we don't know. Everyone's body is different. Whatever you are feeling, it's there. And I think that all of this, although it's been terrible, I have had just switched the role of it and been like, you know what, this is actually maybe a good thing. And I can teach others, I can do this, I can change my life and hopefully advocate for others in this role.
Wow, turning lemons into lemonade and taking possibility back.
Yeah.
Who's your support? Who do you turn to for support?
I mean, friends, family, my husband, he's been great through all of this. He's been by my side. My mom went through breast cancer, so she was there every step of the way. They drove me to all my appointments, and even though it was COVID, they couldn't go inside. They sat in the parking lot, which is amazing. And I just think that I really also turn to others that are going through this too, because no one else knows what you're going through except for someone who has been in a similar, like the role that we're in. And I hope that no one ever experiences this, but in these chances, it's nice to have people like Jamie and Darcy who understand and feel heard. I feel heard when I'm hanging out with them, you know?
Yes, we saw evidence of that during breakfast this morning. That's
I ran home after to the hotel to make a TikTok account because I
to follow
didn't have
this
one.
too.
So I was like, I'm going to need to be on TikTok. So that's how committed I am to this.
Go.
Thank you. Jamie, you have a mantra.
I do.
Do you want to tell the audience here in the room and virtually about your mantra and what drives that?
Yes, I do. So I have two mantras, but I'll give you one of them. Can't give you all my secrets. So my mantra is, I may have cancer, but cancer does not have me. And that came from a friend of mine. I can't trademark that. It was an event that I was at, and she came up to kind of give the closing about the speech that I gave. And she said that, and I was like, oh, that's mine now. And I gobbled it up and I kept it. But the mantra for me is, when I have my days, and I have my days like any other person does, I'm not just happy-go-lucky, and it took a long time for me to get to a point in my journey where I can talk about what I'm going through and laugh. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people are like, how is she so happy and laughing? I had to get here. If you had asked me these questions December of 2018 or January, crying, blubbering mess on this stage, you wouldn't hear anything. But I've gone through my process and my acceptance and, my why me, what did I do? And then I started to reframe it and start to think, why not me? If I feel like it's just confidence, but I just feel like if anybody could get lung cancer and do something big about it, it would be me. So why not take this as an opportunity to educate other people and to show people that it could happen to you as well. I'm just a regular person that got a really crappy hand, and I'm trying to make the best of that hand as I can. But my mantra really comes in handy for me when I start to think about the goals and things that I set for myself. Because, we always look at cancer from this lens of it, even with this campaign, we look at cancer from the lens of what it takes from you, and the possibility it takes away and what it robs from you as a person. And a lot of times we get stuck looking at, we don't open our vision up enough. We get stuck looking at one direct thing and we don't pay attention to the bigger picture. And I came to terms with that, with this mantra because it made me think about my goals and what I wanted to do. And I started to think and really break down what it was, like motherhood, for example. I had to figure out, am I more concerned about the process of being a mother or the end result of being a mother? Do I just care about the baby pictures and, the gender reveals and all that good stuff? Or do I care about the actual moments where I'm raising a child? And for me, it was realizing that I care about the child and the raising of the child and creating that connection with the child. So it doesn't matter how I get to that finish line. It just matters that I get there. So if that's surrogacy, if it's adoption, if it's, whatever, then so be it. It doesn't change the fact that I'm a mother, And so once you start to come to terms with your goals and what's more important to you about that goal, you start to realize that cancer hasn't taken anything from you. Cancer has just shifted your perspective so that you can still do what you need to do. It just may not look like what you originally thought it was going to look like, but it doesn't take away from the fact that you did it. Mm-hmm. So don't think that cancer is going to, take away everything from you. Change your perspective and see, okay, well, how can I still do this and still make this happen? And that's how you take the power back from cancer.
Love it. Love it. And I see Emma nodding along. Do you want to add something, Emma?
I just think that, although this is a not fun experience, I think that it's changed everything in my life, and I'm so grateful for it. And that sounds silly, but no. I'm grateful for everything in life. It could be very minuscule things that I'm doing throughout the day, but I'm doing it. And I think that it's allowed me to take full control of my health and really shake my world in a way that I think is almost positive, in taking control of what I can and cannot do.
Thank you for sharing that. Darcy, looking at you, hearing these stories, hearing this empowerment from Emma and Jamie, what do you have to add?
I spend a lot of my time dreaming about healthcare systems, dreaming about a world that doesn't exist yet, right? Dreaming about a world where we've achieved health equity, where everyone gets the care that they deserve, a world where healthcare is just better for the folks that we serve, folks within my own family as well. And it reminds me of, as I'm sitting here listening and just really in awe of your stories, as I hear more and more of them. It reminds me of a quote that I may not say accurately, but it's a quote that kind of goes like, and Mario Kaba, who also talks about hope being a discipline, says, not only is a new world possible, it's not only possible, but it's on its way. And I feel very confident, and maybe it's some of you who are in this room too, right, who have decision-making powers, who have influence in these systems, that we will achieve health equity and health justice in the future, particularly and especially for the patients who fall through the cracks. I can, after hearing these stories and being a part of this panel today, even more clearly see a healthcare system where equity and justice is within it. And to where we are as one community really fighting people versus cancer and doing it from a place of equity. And so I'm just feeling, in addition to continuing to feel honored, just deeply inspired and hopeful by what becomes possible when we continue to have these conversations, what becomes possible when we continue to have events like this, and what becomes possible when we, as you mentioned, turn the narrative around and look through a different lens about the issue of cancer.
Thanks, Darcy. And as we predicted, this time flew with all of you, both here in the room and online. And we only have a few minutes left, but I want to give each of our panelists just an opportunity to share one final takeaway, one thing that if you wanted this audience to leave with today, if you could share that. Emma, you want to start?
Oh, sure. I think that the biggest thing is that you can take control of your health even though you might not be dealt the best cards. You have the opportunity to voice yourself and change it, and hopefully by you speaking up, it can help others speak up and change the future of healthcare too.
Awesome, thank you. Darcy?
What I'm thinking about is whichever role you're playing in the cancer continuum, whatever position you're holding, whatever role it is that you're playing, whatever brought you here today, whatever that title or job might be, you have the ability to advocate. You can be an advocate wherever you are. You can be an advocate individually, you can join with others and be an advocate collectively, you can join with communities and be part of communities of advocates. And the one thing I'd like to leave you all with today is find the place within what you do on a daily basis where you are going to contribute to the amazing advocacy that's happening every single day across this country. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Darcy. And Jamie, we're going to end with you.
No pressure, just end with me. If I could leave, can I leave 2 things?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yes, absolutely.
The first thing I wanted, because Darcy just brought something to the forefront of my mind, in exactly what she said, find your pocket of advocacy that works for you. And remember that it's, it could be just as simple as educating people and correcting people. There's a lot of times where people will look at me and go, oh, but you didn't smoke. And I'll stop them right there and say, I know you think that. However, that's not the only way you get lung cancer. So taking people as soon as you get them and re-educating them immediately is a form of advocacy. It's a very, very easy form of advocacy. You're just correcting and adjusting for stigmas and things. That's super important. So to tie that into everything, just find that lane that works for you, but get involved somehow and help the fight move forward. Because if you're, the quietness and the silence is what keeps the needle from moving forward altogether. And my final thought is, this is not just for cancer, this is just for general life advice. Like I mentioned earlier, figure out what your goals are and really figure out if you're more concerned with the process or the end result. And that's gonna really tell you and really open up opportunities for you to make your goals possible. Sometimes we set these goals for ourselves and think they're super lofty and we can't do them and it's just pie in the sky kind of stuff. But a lot of times if you really break down what that goal is and what it is about that goal that you're really passionate about, you can find alternative ways to get there. And like I said, it may not look like what you originally set out or what you originally planned for it to look like, but if all you care about is that end result, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I took a zigzag to get to my point A or my point B. The point is, I'm there. So once you come to terms with those kind of feelings and those decisions, that will help you craft, easier ways to get to your goals, whether it's in cancer, real life, whatever it is you're looking to do. So that is my nugget that I will leave with you guys today.
Thank you so much, Jamie. We talked a lot about how cancer can steal possibility, but we talked even more today about how we can take possibility back. And so I'm hoping that we're leaving you with lots of good nuggets, wisdom to take into your daily lives, as our panelists have described. And if you'd like to learn more about the Taking Possibility Back in the Face of Cancer campaign, you can go to www.gilead.com. I'd like to thank all of you here in the room. I'd like to thank all of you participating virtually. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Gilead colleagues who are watching in viewing rooms in Foster City, California and Parsippany, New Jersey. But can we give this amazing panel just a huge round of applause?
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.